I'm so excited for today's conversation. We are talking about YouTube for your product business today. And I know that it's something that can be a little bit overwhelming and it might just feel a little bit mysterious or like you've been considering it, but you're just not even sure how to approach it. And so I feel like you're going to love this conversation. So I'm joined by Stephanie Kase. She is a YouTube educator and she really breaks it down for us. We talk about not only how you can leverage YouTube and really the power that it has in your business, but also how you can think about creating a personal brand within your business to create a content strategy that speaks to either a new customer that you haven't even met yet or your existing customers, just meeting them at a different part of their journey. So we really talk about not just YouTube, but really how you can create a content strategy that's going to really work hard for you outside of just like a 24-hour or even sometimes 2-hour Instagram reel or Instagram story, right? So it's a great conversation. I know you're going to love it. Grab your pencil, grab a pen. Let's get into the chat. Hey friend, quick question for you. Are you feeling stuck with how to get your brand to stand out on Faire? I'm asking you because as a buyer myself, I can tell you that there are just so many brands out there vying for the attention of these buyers, but I know that your brand has something so special and it needs to be seen. I put together a private podcast for you that goes deeper into what buyers are really looking for on the Faire platform and how you can stand out from the crowd to grow your wholesale business and really land those dream buyers. So if this resonates with you, head to the link in the show notes for instant access. Stephanie, I'm so excited to have you on the Buyer Side Chat. I know we're going to talk about YouTube today, but you have such an interesting background and like you didn't really start out with YouTube. So I'd love for you to, I don't know, just for people that don't know you yet, share a little bit about your backstory and like how you got to the point of where you're at today.
Yes. Well, hello. I am Stephanie Kase. I am a YouTube marketing and online business coach. And so I actually started my business almost 10 years ago now in high school. And I started off with photography that led me to educating other photographers. Really just had a big heart to share the things I was learning and what I was learning, like becoming a business owner and marketing myself, and found that a lot of my students were coming to me for mainly marketing advice. Like, how do I actually get people to find me in my business? And eventually that led to, I started my YouTube channel. I started reaching business owners outside of photography, and it really took off from there. So nowadays, I really spend a lot of my time helping business owners scale their businesses with a long form video marketing system. So helping to ditch that like content overwhelm that I know a lot of us feel, especially when it comes to things like Instagram or TikTok, and really just thinking about how to build like a personal brand and get leads on autopilot with YouTube. So I'm super excited to be here.
I love it. It's going to be fun. Right before we started recording, we were talking about like, okay, this audience is a little different from your typical audience. I'm so excited to have you on here, but you typically talk about, building that personal brand, and we're talking to product business owners. But the reason I'm so excited to have you on, well, I'm so excited for many reasons, but I know YouTube has so much opportunity or product brands have so much opportunity to leverage YouTube. But a really interesting thing that you teach on is the personal brand. And something that I know I'm constantly talking to clients with or listeners is like, okay, I'm already maxed out with my business and I'm not really sure like how to build a content strategy that infuses some of me, but also my product. And so I'm curious your thoughts just from like the couple minutes that we started talking beforehand about like, how do you feel a personal brand works into a physical product brand?
Yes. Okay. So I feel like this is something, so I do help. Most of my students typically are more so like online courses or online services, coaching, things like that. But I do have students who sell like e-commerce, physical products. And one thing that I really think there's a huge opportunity as a physical product-based business, because there are so many people not doing it in that space.
Yeah.
And I also look at like, okay, what what's happening right now, even in like, okay, let's like take a step back with the grand scheme of marketing. You see so many big brands humanizing their brand, right? Essentially creating a personal brand. And so just because you sell products, or even if you have this vision, like you're like, well, I want to sell this business down the road, I don't want to always be attached to it. There is a way to do it where you can humanize your brand with that personal brand, like bringing yourself into it, or even bringing multiple people into your brand and helping create content where it's not just you. And then it can grow from there and like having other people a part of the brand. Does that make sense? So like,
Yeah,
just almost
totally.
thinking about how to humanize it, right? And I think that's where a lot of marketing nowadays is even going, of like, you see a lot of these huge brands like coming back to the drawing board and being like, okay, we need to like, you see a lot of the content they're creating now is so like, it feels like influencer style content, or there's people in the video. It's not just showcasing the product anymore, right? And you see that across the board with so many different things. So I really believe there's a huge opportunity there. And I think that's where marketing is shifting and like what's working really well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think it's been interesting to watch it because I feel like it, for, I don't know, maybe 5 or more years ago, it was like really polished brands, really like there was so much pressure to perfectly shoot your product and really show up so polished, and everything was so just perfect, matchy. Everything looked so good. And then it like swung the pendulum. And now I feel like we're kind of coming back to this middle ground where it's this combination of, or at least you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm seeing brands that are like, okay, we know we do need some of that polished brand imagery, video, things that look really professionally done, but then also mixing in the true lifestyle, like humanizing content.
Yeah, 100%.
It's
People want to connect with something and want to be a part of something bigger and want to join, like, I don't know, almost like join a community or feel like they're a part of something with another person, right? And I've just seen even that shift for my own business of like, okay, making sure that like I'm still highlighting almost and like have at the forefront, like I'm a human and I'm humanizing my brand. I'm bringing that personal branding into it, not constantly just being like, buy this or get this, right? But bringing myself into it.
Yeah. I mean, it's because people buy for, like you said, the community or because of that person. It's like you're not buying, I'm going to say jewelry. You're not buying that jewelry because it's 14 karat gold filled. You're buying it because you really love the brand or you love the founder and you've like really connected with them, because a million brands have gold filled hoop earrings, but like this is the brand that you fell in love with, the owner of that. And so what do you think whenever a brand is thinking about, okay, how can I start injecting more of either myself or like humanizing it, especially for those that are a little anxious at first about showing up on camera? What are your thoughts on like how brands could pull some of that in and make it feel a little bit easier and a little bit more comfortable to start creating their own personal brand within their brand?
Yes. So I love this topic. And this is something that I've even like done since I started my business 10 years ago, which also just kind of goes to show like this is, even though, yes, like a lot of big brands are coming back to it, I think it's more of like a timeless strategy in the sense of like, this has always worked so well. Like people do connect with people so well. And so I always think about like, you can take baby steps as far as like showing you, the founder of the brand. You can show yourself and how you're creating your product, the behind the scenes of that. Share the story of why you created it. And it can start as simple as like B-roll of yourself, like actually physically doing whatever it is that you do for your brand. Or it can be like sharing your story with like text boxes on a reel. It doesn't have to be on camera at first. However, and I know, you know, like I love long form video. I love YouTube marketing. I do think there's a huge opportunity to get on camera and to chat more about like, okay, like what is the story behind your brand? Why are you creating this? What does a day in the life look like as someone who's building the type of brand that you're building? How can you show your ideal audience that like the product that you are offering is for them and like is something that they want to be a part of, right? And I think that's where even like long form video can come in as well.
Yeah. I think too, like just to add on to that, because I think that is it just feels like it reduces the pressure of like, okay, I'm just talking about what I love doing. I also think there's this feeling of like, oh, I have to come up with all these stories and all these things to talk about. But really, some of the best brands out there, the best creators out there have like one or two or maybe three stories that they just tell over and over and over again in different ways. And so like, I don't know your thoughts on that, but I feel like that's a good way to start, of just like, okay, what is my core story and how can I tell it different ways and create different types of content for it?
Yeah, 100%. This is actually something I've even been challenging myself to do, of like incorporating more of that storytelling, because I even noticed for myself, like, notice your behavior. Like when someone starts to tell a story to illustrate a point or to bring you into their offer, like it's so strong. It like really does draw you in. And so I like to think about, I think one of the, like you just mentioned, one of the easiest ways is like almost more of that founder story, right? Like, why did you start this? Why did you start creating this? Like, what's that story behind it? And telling that in different ways over and over again throughout your content. And like you mentioned as well, I think that's like such an attainable way to do it, because it's something like, it's literally your lived experience in a way of like, this is why I'm creating this. This is why I'm so on fire about this. This is why, like, the mission behind the brand, like what I'm doing. And I think that makes it feel a little bit easier, and just act like you're chatting with a friend about it, right? Like, it doesn't, like you mentioned, it doesn't need to be super polished. It doesn't need to be like this super put together, like, piece of video content or personal branding content. I think especially nowadays, I mean, on Instagram as well, but also with YouTube, it's become so much more casual, which I really enjoy, because it has really relieved this pressure to like, you know, make sure I'm saying the right thing and don't have any like gaps in my like talking, and make sure that I have all these pop-ups and all the, you know, and that used to be more true like 5 years ago, maybe longer than that too. But nowadays it's like the content that I find myself gravitating towards, and actually YouTube and the algorithm, like what is working really well is that more like conversational style content. So it's like, how can we just bring it back to just sharing from the heart, and like you're chatting with a friend? It doesn't need to be overly polished and like totally put together.
Yeah. Okay. I love that you went here with this, because that is something like I have been dreaming of having a YouTube channel for so long, and I am working on it with your help. But that is something that like, I always feel like, okay, I love getting on camera. I'm totally fine with that. But when it comes to like I feel like YouTube has to be all these graphics and all these like fancy things. And it's definitely, from what you shared and what I've seen just in my research, like it definitely feels more chill, which is really exciting and relieves pressure. But my question for you is like, okay, so it's a little bit more chill, but there is still that attention span, that short attention span, and like things need to move quickly. So how do you recommend that people keep their videos engaging and, I'm going to say, playing to the algorithm, but really it's like playing to people's attention spans,
Totally.
and still get the point across and be like a catchy YouTube video?
Yeah. Yeah, I do think, so the main things that I keep in mind when I'm recording YouTube content specifically, or thinking about long form video, is one, it is a perspective shift from, because I think so often like we're on Instagram and TikTok and we're like, oh, it's got to be like the catchiest thing, the catchiest hook, the catchiest like this and that. And yes, there are important things when it comes to long form video, but at the end of the day, what I found is that, number one, the right people are going to stick around and watch. Like the goal isn't just to get the most amount of views, the most amount of retention. Like the goal is to genuinely connect with your people, and for them to see your heart, for them to hear more of your story, for them to learn from you, to, however it could apply to your brand. And so I do think it's almost like approaching it and thinking, okay, let's shift our perspective a little bit from this constant, like almost like taking a deep breath, like, okay, like we don't have to show up on YouTube like we do on Instagram or TikTok or other like super fast-paced platforms. While they do have their place and there are really incredible ways that can help your business to grow, YouTube is almost this perspective shift of like, I'm going to create this really intentionally made long-form piece of I said feast. What even is that? Piece of content that is going to connect with my viewer. And yes, I would say the main things that keep in mind is that I do create an outline for myself that has maybe about 3 main points that I want to cover, right? And then I have maybe sub points under that of like the main things I want to touch on, but I do not script my videos. And I just try to make sure like I introduce the video, let them know what they're going to expect to learn in the video so they know exactly right away, like this is for me or this is not, and just sticking to the outline as much as I can. And I keep my videos around 10 minutes long. So a lot of my videos are more of those sit down videos, but even when I've done more like vlogs, like if you're a brand with products, you might do more like day in the life or showcasing you packaging up a product, right? And even with those, I mean, a lot of mine were like 15 minutes long when I did something like that. And it's almost just realizing like you're giving them a taste of who you are. And it doesn't have to be this one super polished, like perfected taste of who you are, right? Like, again, bringing that humanness into your brand. But also, it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out, like 30 plus minute conversation. It can be simple and to the point. And at least the main thing I keep in mind is making sure that I am sticking to that outline more, not rambling. And sometimes when I'm editing, I realize, wow, I rambled on about this point for like 3 minutes and I know I'm going to lose people. So I'll just like cut it down or cut it out. And it's totally like that's going to happen. And it happened a lot more when I first started filming YouTube videos. I'm like, okay. And you kind of learn as you like film more videos. And one really cool, like a tip here is to watch your own videos back from start to finish. Don't put it on 2 times speed, like 1 time speed, watch your video. And when you notice yourself starting to like look away, want to look at your phone or want to get distracted with something, maybe that's a cue for you to look and say like, what was I talking about? Was I rambling about something? Was it something where maybe I needed to just move on to the next point? And just kind of notice your own behavior with that. But I mean, you can also look at once you upload a video, your audience's behavior. And as long as your retention rate is around 30%, that's kind of what you're going for. And I don't really worry too much if it's if it's maybe like 5% or 10%, you might want to look at some things, right? But if it's around that 30% mark, I generally don't worry too much. And again, the nature of YouTube is so much like the viewers coming to it, they're coming to it wanting to sit down and like really watch a long form video and learn and, hear what you have to say. And I've just found in general, they're not viewers that are like just looking for a quick hack in 30 seconds in a reel, right? It's almost like a different online user of like someone who really wants to sit down and like watch something all the way through. And YouTube also came out with a recent report about their platform that like backs up all of this too. Like people are more so comparing or using YouTube as like a replacement for watching something like Netflix or other subscriptions versus an alternative for what like scrolling on Instagram, right? And so that kind of gives you some clues into like, okay, either it's like it's the same user, but maybe it's a different time of day when they normally sit down, they want to watch a long form video, or it's a, just a completely different mindset of someone who's going to sit down and watch a YouTube video. They're not scrolling on their phone looking for a quick hack. They're sitting down. Like if it's like me, like I have it on my TV and I'll sit down and I do this. Like I watch YouTube on my TV all the time. And it's more of a replacement for like Netflix or a show like that.
I love that you brought that up because I think it's a really good way to think about how YouTube could layer into your content strategy. It's not necessarily replacing something else. It's just like meeting your customers at a different point in their journey with you, I'll say. Like it's okay, they're not just doom scrolling on Instagram or they're not scrolling on TikTok. They're really looking for entertainment. And it's not like, oh, you have to like dance and, do major entertainment, but it's like, it's just having a conversation with them that makes it feel just, okay, a little bit more chill. I can kind of see how this would layer in. And you made a really good point when you were like thinking about the customer that is watching. It might be the same customer. It might be a different customer that's not really a big, Instagram person. It could be both of them. It's like thinking about how that could fit into your story is fun, and it kind of just brings a different perspective to it. How do you recommend for someone who's like, I barely can post on Instagram as it is, Kristen and Stephanie, like how can I layer this in? And this is actually like my inner voice speaking, because this is something that I get hung up on too. It's like, I'm dying to do YouTube, but how could I possibly fit it in? So what are your recommendations or tips for someone who doesn't have a YouTube channel yet? They feel like it could be good for them. How do they layer this into what they're already doing and not have it feel like, oh my gosh, I have to post on YouTube for the rest of my life every single week?
Yeah. Okay. So the immediate things that I think about, like when you start on YouTube, and this is something that I teach inside my program, is number one, have it start replacing the short form content you're already creating. So this is actually something I'm challenging myself to do more of, because I've kind of fallen off of this and realized, like, wait a second, I'm already putting all this time into my YouTube content. Now let's take that content and repurpose it into content on the platforms I'm already showing up on. And it's almost like also kind of deciding that you're going for a YouTube first strategy here, right? And I think that also like comes from wanting to create marketing that's going to work for you for months and years, not just in the next couple of days, and having that long-term vision. It's not an overnight success type of thing. I mean, it can be. I've had students who have started and within a few weeks, like, see some sales, and that does happen. But in general, it's going to take multiple months to get there, right? And I really recommend that you think about like the platforms already showing up on. So like for me, that'd be Instagram. I can take my YouTube videos and I can turn it into a few different Instagram posts, whether it's like we take a clip from the video and like of me talking to the camera and turn that into an Instagram reel. Actually, my team member is doing that for me right now. We take the transcript from the video and using AI. I have a custom AI assistant that I've created. I actually use Claude. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Claude, but it's kind of like ChatGPT, very similar, but I personally love it more for copywriting. I think it sounds a little less AI and cheesy. I think it sounds a little bit better. And I can drop the transcript into there and it will like create from that transcript, oh, here's like an Instagram optimized carousel based on what you talked about in this video. And same thing for like Instagram story slides, same kind of thing for like I can either create slides that just like that. It's not like going back to the drawing board of thinking about what do I share on Instagram stories today, but it's like I already created that amazing idea. Now let's repurpose it into other things. Or it's creating and drafting like an email newsletter to my email list. And it's like I did this for years when I first started on YouTube. Before I had an assistant who worked maybe 4 to 5 hours a month for me, but it was nothing, like not much. Now I have an assistant team member who works more like 20 hours a week. So a little bit of a jump there. And so it's more helpful to get her to help me with stuff. But back when I was doing all of it myself, I just made things so simple for myself. I was like, I take this one YouTube video, that's the newsletter to my email list. I'd be like, okay, here's what you're going to learn in this YouTube video, or here's what we're covering, or here's what I'm sharing with you, and here's why you want to watch it. Now click here to watch it. It's what a couple of my Instagram posts were about. It's what I would even, at the assistant I had at the time, the main thing she did was take that video and create a blog post out of it, and then have an SEO optimized blog post as well that's out there that people can search and find me on. And so that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's like, how can you replace the content you're already making? And I think it's so, like, even for me, my mindset about Instagram and things like that, it's become so much less about how can I create content to like go viral and grow my following. And it's become so much more about how can I connect with the people in my audience, like the right people with this content. And I've just gotten to the point where I am not so worried about likes and comments and views anymore. I'm like, if it reaches the right person and helps bring them into my world where I can serve them, I know I can help transform their marketing and their business. Like, that's what matters to me. And so it's almost like having that YouTube first strategy in that way of not always creating new Instagram content, catering to Instagram, but instead catering more to what works on YouTube for that long-term strategy, and then repurposing that on Instagram. And I still make Instagram first content, but it looks different, right? And it's not a constant like new content creation. And I'm also able to outsource a lot of that as my brand has grown. And now my team member, she spends about an hour a week repurposing all those things. So that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is make it a big deal to your current audience. Like, use the audience you already have and share your YouTube videos. That kind of plays into the repurposing part. But like, don't be afraid to share your YouTube channel over and over and over again, and really leverage. Like, I think so often we get so focused on like, we always need new people and new leads and new visibility, but it's like, who's already in your community who hasn't bought, or who can rebuy your products over and over again? And how can you leverage your YouTube videos to even take those people in your audience who maybe are on the edge of like buying from you, or maybe they're just kind of like they follow you, they're interested, but nothing's really like moved them to buy. But maybe they watch one of your YouTube videos where you're sharing genuinely why you started your brand. And they're like, oh, I'm on board with that. I'm going to her website and I'm buying right now. Like thinking about that as well can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too. It's like, okay, we do know that we need more people to come into our world to buy from us. Like that's like marketing 101. You have to fill the top of your funnel. But especially now, I think people are really looking to connect with brands. And so you probably have a lot of lingerers, a lot of people that have just been waiting on the sidelines or that maybe bought from you once and would come back and buy from you again, but they just really need to like have something that pulls them in. And so it makes a lot of sense to really leverage YouTube. And just to kind of go back to like the YouTube first strategy, I love that you talk about that because I think that gives you kind of that anchor point of like, okay, if I'm going to put the effort into creating a YouTube video, it feels like a heavier lift for me right now because it's not something I'm used to doing. Like, okay, I'm going to create this video. And then from that's going to replace all this other content that I have to like quote unquote come up with, and then you can just have that be like your anchor content and leverage that, like you said, on the blog and Pinterest and email and clips on Instagram and TikTok. And maybe you tweak them. Maybe you just take the topic of that video and you make some content that's set up to convert. But like that is such an easier way to think about it. I'm curious, as I'm thinking about this, like what are your thoughts on leveraging shorts versus the more long form content? Like, is it worth it? Is it worth putting your YouTube reel or your TikTok or Instagram reels up on YouTube as shorts? I guess, no, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's actually, so my strategy has been very focused on long form because that is the type of content that's a little more evergreen. Like YouTube Shorts even is more similar to Instagram Reels or TikTok, where yes, you can see views like, a day, like weeks after you post it, but it's usually pretty minimal and it's a little bit more so within the first day or two. And that's just from uploading myself. That's what I found to be true. So I haven't put a huge emphasis on that because I'm more focused on how can I create content that's going to convert into views, but also buyers, like leads for my business, and do that for months and months and years and years. And so I'm doing some testing like right now as we speak. We're changing things up a little bit with YouTube Shorts, just testing some different things to see, because YouTube does rank some shorts. Like when you type something in YouTube in the search bar, there will be some shorts that are ranked at the top, which is very interesting. So we're trying some more things with like keyword optimization with shorts there. But it's even, you kind of have to think like, there's some reels that just like don't make sense for a search term or like, so my thing has always been more focused on long form. And just because, again, it's like, because that's the basis of my strategy when it comes to marketing is creating that video. And then we are repurposing that onto shorts. But again, it's something that I do have help with. I have a team member. I also have been using Opus Clip to do that. You just upload your video into there, or you can put a link to your uploaded YouTube video, and it will generate a bunch of short form clips for you. So for me, it's amazing. Like, yeah, so it makes it a lot simpler. We've been using that more recently, and that's been really helpful. But I generally, for me personally, like, I think it's more so, and this is where I get questions a lot on, like, can I do a video podcast and put it on YouTube? Like, will that work? And there's so many different things to talk about with that, but the biggest difference to me is like, what do you envision for your marketing long term? Do you want marketing that's going to keep working for you over and over again without having to create new marketing? And kind of like you asked earlier, like, do I have to upload YouTube videos forever and always every single week? Like, no, you definitely don't have to. Like last year, I took 6 months off between just going through some like health issues, and then I had another baby and postpartum. I didn't upload a new long form video for 6 months and still had over 1 million views from YouTube in that 6 month time period. And typically around over 400 new email opt-ins every single month. And that continued through that. And that came through those, wow, I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm like trying to think what I was saying.
No, you were talking about not having to post every single.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And that comes through uploading long form videos and a focus on that, like a YouTube first strategy with that. So even going back to like that YouTube first strategy, it's like, do you want a podcast first strategy or a YouTube first strategy? And there's nothing wrong with having a podcast first strategy. It's just if you want to continue to see views come in and sales and leads, it's going to require more so of like consistent uploading, probably a guest strategy, right? Like you're doing right now with your own podcast and connecting with different guests. And I think that's where like shorts can be helpful because it can help to generate more views from the work you're doing for a podcast and having a video podcast. Like you think about the like the biggest podcasts out there who are on YouTube, like they're uploading their podcast to YouTube, that's super long form. But generally when you look, like they are uploading a ton of shorts along with this. So whether it's them or their team, and that really helps to propel like their podcast forward and to get it out to more people. And so, yeah, so I think it's just a totally different strategy as far as like, and that's where I think shorts can also play into if you're like, yeah, I'd rather do like a lot of guests and I'd rather upload every week. And maybe that means like sometimes you'll have to pre-create content for months at a time and like not take off if you want to keep that going. Like that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with it. It's just totally different. I do think YouTube Shorts is helpful for that sort of strategy. But for the strategy that I've decided that I want it more based on my long form videos are what are generating me views, because typically like when I look at my analytics, that's where most of my views are coming from every month.
That's super helpful to have that insight. So thank you for sharing that, because I feel like I'm sure a lot of people listening are similar to me. It's like you look at this new thing and you're like, well, in order to be on YouTube, I have to do this, this, and this, and all the things. And then there's shorts and then there's this. And it's like, okay, I'm so overwhelmed. And now I'm going to close my laptop and go get a snack because I don't want to even think about this. So it's so good to hear that you're saying like, they can help. It depends on what your goal is with YouTube and like what you ultimately want. And I think for a lot of people, when you're just starting out on a platform or trying a new thing, it's like, okay, let's just focus on the thing that is going to drive traffic and hopefully orders and get leads to your email list. And that is like focus on the long form content and layer in shorts when you can. And the other thing that you've talked about a couple times throughout this is just really leaning on AI to make things more simple. I know that you have that in your course as well. So I'd love to like kind of turn this over and talk about your course. The YouTube for Business course I know is so great. And I really think that product business owners could definitely get a lot out of this if they're looking to just dive into YouTube. So I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit and like how you came up with that idea to create this course and all the things.
Yes. So I created YouTube for Business. It's funny because when I created it, I didn't create it being like, I'm just going to talk about YouTube now. And that's the only thing I'm going to teach. Like I created it in a season of just genuinely, honestly, it was one of the last courses I created. Like I'd come up with this offer suite and I was like, this was one of the last things that was on like my list, to like create. And honestly, out of like my own audience, seeing me on YouTube and how I had grown my business. So I didn't grow my YouTube channel through YouTube marketing. Like, yes, I teach business owner social media marketing, but it was more focused on like Instagram Reels, passive income. Like that's what I focused on for the first few years. And so it really came out of like my brand, like it truly propelled my brand in the direction I wanted to go. Because like I mentioned, I was a photographer and I just remember like I felt like I was in this bubble of like everyone on Instagram that followed me were photographers. Love photographers. Like nothing wrong with being a photographer. I still have so many friends that are, but I just realized like I wanted to teach more like online business strategies. I wanted to teach online marketing. That's what I had really loved doing in my business up until that point. I guess I'd been in business for like 6 years at that point. And YouTube was really the catalyst for me in like attracting a whole new audience and taking my audience along and saying, hey, like here's what I'm talking about now. Like here's my niche. Here's the direction I'm going. Here's how I want to help you guys. And it really helps to grow my brand in a really big way. Like my YouTube channel really started taking off in 2020. The following year, I launched my first online course that was like not photography related, which for me was a really big deal because up until that point, that's all I had been doing. It brought in over $40,000 in about a week in that launch, which for me at the time was, it was like $147 course is how much I charged for it, like pretty crazy. And most of that was profit for my business. So that really just led to, and then the next year, like my brand just really grew, like revenue wise, allowed my husband to quit his job, allowed him to be at home with us. So I could focus. I had twins that year. So that's how I started off motherhood, was with 2 babies, which is so fun, but also a little crazy. And so it was just truly such a blessing to have this platform that truly grew my brand. And also, like, when I had my twins before my husband quit his job, I was the main caretaker of them. And so for 6 months, like, I really couldn't work a lot. Like, my team member still with me now, she was with me then, and she's like, you were a totally different person. Like, that was just like a crazy time. She's like, I started off thinking you were like, that was the norm. And I've realized that's not the norm, which is totally fine. But like, sometimes it would take me a week or 2 weeks to like get back to her own stuff. And so yeah, so it's just like through that whole like time and like my audience seeing that growth for myself, and genuinely like it changed my life and my business. Like, I know people say that they're like, oh, like this transformed my business, but like truly, and it was such a genuine like catalyst of that. My audience was asking me for it. And so I was like, okay, I'll create this and like share more with you guys on how I'm doing it. And just over the past, so that was about a year and a half ago. And just over the past year and a half, I've realized that like that is such a passion of mine, because I see such a gap in so many business owners, you know, because YouTube, there are a lot of moving parts, and sometimes like the tech side of things, or coming up with the ideas and like creating that workflow and having the strategy. It's like there's not a lot of people out there talking about how to do it, and you see other business owners doing it perhaps, and you're like it looks easy from the outside looking in, but then once you decide to give it a go, you're like, wow, that was way more than I was expecting. There's so many moving parts, right? And so it's really become like, I truly want more business owners to see how powerful that shift can be, like moving to YouTube and something that's more long form, that's evergreen, that you can take time off and your marketing will keep going. If you have any sort of offer that can sell without you physically being present to like provide the offer, aka like a physical product, right? YouTube can bring people into your audience without you having to be present in your business. And because of the way the platform works, people can find you 24/7. Like, even when you take time off, it's like I like to give the analogy of, okay, so like I grew up in Alaska for a long time. And yeah. So I just remember, like, it was so funny, like when it started to get like warmer out. So we had snow almost like most of the year, but like we would build snowmen a lot, right? So like, you know, as kids, like you build, like it's snow, like here we live in South Carolina now. You get snow maybe once a year if we're lucky. And it's like, we'll build a snowman. And when it starts to get warm out, it's so funny, like, you know, all the snow melts, except usually that snowman is still in your front yard when all the snow is gone. And you're like, it's still standing, right? And I like to think about growing a YouTube channel as like that. Like, you can build this like amazing, huge snowman. And even if you stop and like start to melt away, AKA like stop posting videos, right? Like you start to take a pause from that, you can still have that snowman standing, and it takes a long time for it to melt and completely go away. And so yes, consistency is important in the long term, but also once you've built up that momentum and you have this huge snowman created, you have all these videos that are working for you all of the time, it's not something that when you stop, it's just instantly gonna tank with it, right? Like something like Instagram or TikTok, or I mean, sometimes even, at least for me personally, my own podcast, like it is more of a consistency thing and having to upload new episodes, versus with YouTube, I have videos back from like 2021, 2022 that are still like, people are still watching them and commenting on them and coming into my world from them. And having all those videos like working for you around the clock is just so powerful. So anyways, I know I'm getting like way off track from what you originally asked, but
no, this is perfect. That's perfect. That's like, honestly, I'm so glad that you went into that, because I think that is the beauty of YouTube. And that's why we're talking about it today. Like, I don't always talk about, you know, TikTok or YouTube or like other platforms, but I feel like this is something, especially with, speaking of TikTok, like we don't know what's going to happen with TikTok. Like every 90 days, it's changing what's going on with it. And, you know, I hope it stays around, but like YouTube isn't going anywhere. It's been here for, I don't know how long, at least 15 years. I feel like it's been around for a while, right? It's not going anywhere. It's not trend. It's not a fad. It is legitimately here and it's evolving, but it's a really great way to get your brand out there where you don't have to show up consistently. It's like, if you think about how blogging is still relevant, it's still important. It's just different than what it was,
Totally.
10, 15 years ago. It's still here and it's still important to bring new people to your business. It's just like on video form, which is just becoming increasingly important. And so I love that you shared that and you shared your passion and how it has totally changed your life and the trajectory of your business. And just like as a side note, I just have to say, anybody listening to this that's like holding on to something in their business for dear life and like ignoring the thing that is clearly showing them that there is opportunity, like let this be a sign for you to lean into what works, because for you listen to that and you're like, okay, I'm going to build this course and it's completing my offer suite. And, that ended up being the thing. Not saying the other things weren't the thing too, but like this is now where what you're leaning into, and it's helping so many businesses. So that's just like a really nice footnote and perfect way to end this episode, this conversation. I feel like I could ask you 9,000 more questions, so I won't. But I'd love for you to share how people can find you and sign up for YouTube for Business. We'll obviously link everything in the show notes, but
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. So stephaniekase.com is where you can find really anything. I'm at Stephanie Lynn Kase on Instagram. And then I also do have, if you want to learn even more, because I know we didn't really talk a whole lot about like the technical side of things, the workflow side of things, or even just more about ideas and stuff. If you go to stephaniekase.com/YouTube class, it's a free class. It's about an hour long, great introductory class. And if you decide you want to join YouTube for Business, it has a great bonus at the end. So if you decide you want to jump in, it gives you an invitation there and also just helps you learn a little bit more about me and my strategy and what that looks like.
Amazing. That's perfect. I'll link everything in the show notes so that you can access that and connect with Stephanie. But thank you so much for coming. This was such a fun conversation. Like I said, I feel like I talk to you for like 30, 40 more minutes. So I appreciate all that you shared today.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
If you're ready to take your wholesale business to the next level on Faire, I invite you to check out the Faire Bootcamp. It's the only program of its kind that combines a step-by-step growth approach to optimize and stand out on Faire, and buyer relationship building strategies to capture the attention of your ideal retailers, both on and off the Faire platform. With bite-sized, action-focused trainings, the Faire Bootcamp is designed to deliver results as quickly and efficiently as possible, because I know you are busy and you do not have time to waste. So to learn more, head over to kristenfishercoaching.com/Faire Bootcamp. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today. If you are loving the show, I would be so beyond grateful if you would rate and review the podcast and share it with one of your biz besties to help spread the word. I hope that you absolutely crush your sales this week. I'll be back to chat with you next Monday.